Have you ever felt not good enough at something or in life? Were you raised by a perfectionist as a parent? Are you medicating the pain in life with alcohol, drug, pornography, food, or any other source? If you are, this episode's for you. Check it out now.
The Remarkable People Podcast. Check it out. The Remarkable People Podcast. Listen, do, repeat. For life.
Hello, friends. Welcome to this week's episode of the Remarkable People Podcast, the Ron Reich story. This week, Ron's super transparent and open with us about how as a young man, he was raised by a father he loved and loved him, but his father was a perfectionist and he felt like he was never good enough. And even though this wasn't really a conscious decision, it carried with him through life. And it ended up in alcoholism, divorce, and all sorts of destructive ways. So while you're listening to this episode, the first 20 minutes is really Ron's backstory, but hang with it. Go through the whole episode. There's tons of gold. There's tons of help and nuggets. So if you or someone you love, or even someone you know is struggling with an addiction and doesn't know how to break the madness and the cycle, Ron's story is going to help you. He's going to talk about the never feeling good enough. He's going to talk about running from the past and how that never works. And then he's going to talk about overcoming life and the scenarios that life throws at us and the challenges without using drugs, alcohol, porn, or any other kind of medication. Okay. So this is the Remarkable People Podcast. This is the Ron Reich story. Get your pens and papers ready to take notes and know we love you. We're here from you. Reach out to Ron or myself. We want to help you in any way we can. There's links in the show notes, and we're also going to discuss how you can reach Ron at the end of the episode. So at this time, a business coach, an entrepreneur, a HR expert, a man who trains and develops people for a living is about to share his personal testimony with you of the highs, the lows, and everything in between. Welcome to the Ron Reich story. Hey, Ron, how are you today, brother?
David, I'm doing fine, thank you. It's nice to be here.
It's great to have you. And for our listeners, I just told them a little bit about you and how you're so dedicated and steadfast. You're actually recording from your iPhone because the power's out and construction's being done in your neighborhood and your home. So thank you so much.
My pleasure.
All right. Well, let me ask you a question, Ron, before we start. If you had one message to deliver to our community today and our audience, what would it be? We're going to have time to go deep and wide through your life, learn tons of lessons that you're going to share with us. But if there was one main message that listeners are going to get out of this episode, what would that be?
You know what? I think what it would be, one of the most effective things that anybody can do on any level is get to know yourself extraordinarily well. Because the better you know yourself, the more effectively you're going to be able to interact with people in your professional life, in your personal life. And it is just an absolute critical skill to have. And I think a lot of people miss out on that.
Awesome. So ladies and gentlemen, like we said in the introduction, and like you heard Ron just say, that's just a piece of the message that you can expect in this episode. So get your pens and paper ready. But at this time, Ron, we go through from your birth to today. So where were you born? What was your upbringing like? Let's start from that.
Sure. Born and raised in northern New Jersey. I am the youngest of four. My oldest sister is 13 years older than I am. My brother is 10 years older than I am. And Lorraine, my other sister, is 7 years older than I am. So we have a pretty interesting dynamics with the age differences there. Growing up, David, really pretty typical, I am going to say. My earliest memories are always that I loved sports. And I love being athletic. I love sports. I loved competing. And the other thing that I always found myself doing was trying to help people. I've always been drawn to that. I've always been, quote unquote, attracted to that. And there's actually some interesting research on that we can talk about maybe even later on in the show, because it doesn't surprise me today that those are the things I was interested in when I was a little kid. And just growing up, again, pretty typical. Got to high school, and I think that's where things started to get a little bit interesting, if you will, and I'll put interesting in quotes, because when I got to high school, I realized I am a decent athlete, not a great one, decent. And I am also, I had terrible acne when I was in high school. And I was very, very self-conscious of that. And I was intimidated, if you will, even just trying to talk to girls or anything like that. And the point I make is that at times throughout high school, I wasn't sure I had a place where I fit in. Because, like I said, I was a decent athlete. I wasn't one of the superstars. And I certainly wasn't one of the ladies' men. And I also wasn't part of the other crowd. Back then we used to call them the burnouts, the drug people and that sort of thing. So, I found my place, although I wasn't absolutely sure. And again, actually interesting, I'm just thinking about this right now. I wasn't really sure who I was, what I was, or where I wanted to go. And granted, at 17, 18 years old, I'm not sure there are many people out there at all who can answer that question. Actually, interestingly too, I think even then, and we'll talk about this much more, even though I was a decent athlete, I was a decent student and all that, my self-esteem was still not probably where it should have been or could have been, and or my confidence. And I applied early decision to Gettysburg College, thinking there is no way in the world these people are going to take me. There is no way in the world. And I was stunned when I got in, just absolutely stunned. And that's where I did go to school. And David, again, interestingly, and this goes to, and we're going to get into this in more detail, when I got to school, I realized instantly, just instantly, wow, everybody here, and again, this is the story in my mind, everybody here is smarter than I am. Everybody here is a better athlete than I am. Everybody here, it was just very intimidating to me. And I did okay freshman year. I started to join a fraternity, and at Gettysburg, the Greek life, if you were going to have any sort of social life, you needed to be in the Greek system. This was a college of 2,000 kids, and 85% joined fraternities. Long story short, I started to join one and then dropped out. I was like, this is not for me. And man, I'll tell you, I struggled. I struggled second semester of freshman year, just with my social life, because everybody was in a fraternity and there were just very, very few people to hang out with. Same thing sophomore year, although sophomore year, second semester, I met some people at a fraternity where I was like, you know what, I fit in better here. And that is where I did join there. And I have friends from that fraternity to this day, people with whom I am still in touch. Academically, I was decent, not great by any stretch of the imagination, right down the middle of the road. And being a business major, I took, the typical courses, and realizing too, and again, interestingly here, the courses I enjoyed the most were the ones that were about people, and the courses where I had the chance to interact with more people. Fast forward, graduated, and again, wasn't absolutely sure what I wanted to do. I had a liberal arts degree now, and I was interviewing for a lot of different spots. And again, it's not always what you know, it's who you know. And our family knew the executive vice president of human resources for one of the major banks in the area. And again, long story short, I talked to him, I talked to the people on his team, and he offered me a spot in HR. And that's where I began my career. First 10 years was it was fun. I mean, it really was. I did a lot of employment work. I did some compensation work. I was learning about benefits and things like that. And I actually, way back in the 80s, the banking mergers were coming fast and furious. We got acquired, and essentially it was time to move on. And a number of us started our own consulting firm. So we did that for about 5 years, HR consulting, which was fine. And for a number of different reasons, we decided to close the doors. And at that point in time, David, I denied to no one that I was struggling. I was really struggling. I was in the middle of a very, very nasty divorce. And, I was drinking too much, and things were just not going well. So, I mean, from a personal side, things were really difficult. And professionally, although I enjoyed HR, I just had that nagging, is this really what I want to do? Is this really where I want to be? And to start to combine some things here, I got sober in January. The day I stopped was January 31st, 1993. And I will forever remember that day for a lot of different reasons. Number one, it was Super Bowl Sunday, and I am an enormous New York Giant football fan. And so I remember.
I'm sorry to hear that as a Patriots fan.
That's what people say quite often.
I'm just kidding.
Most often is I accept your condolences. Thank you.
Hey, we lost Brady, so I can't talk to these last couple of years.
And, I got sober, and I believe very, very strongly everything happens for a reason. Just everything happens for a reason. And another philosophy that I have developed over the years is that I believe in just staying out of the results business. And what I mean by that, simply, my job, professionally, personally, whatever it might be, is do the groundwork, do what I need to do. And, so a lot of people call it control the controllables. Fine. I love the serenity prayer. And just, grant me the serenity to accept the things that I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. And the reason I bring this up, David, is that I had interviewed on 3 separate occasions with an insurance firm in Manhattan. They invited me back for the 4th interview, and it was my understanding and my belief, all I needed to go back, I needed to meet with the EVP of HR to get his blessing, and that was going to be that. Got there, I didn't like him, he didn't like me, and it was just like, you know what, I don't want to be here. And leaving there, I was like, man, what is going on in my life? And again, I had not yet adapted this philosophy of stay out of the results business. About a month later, I got a telephone call from a guy in Dallas, Texas. It was a recruiter. And I was living with my parents at the time because I had nowhere else to go. Like I said, I was getting divorced. I was newly sober. And this guy says to me, I've got an opportunity with Toshiba, Ron. He said, the competencies they have are the exact opposite of what you are. They are looking for somebody who has a strong training background and who has some HR. You have a lot of HR and you've done some training. I'm going to get you in front of them. Your job, Ron, get them to flip their competencies. I interviewed with them. They flipped their competencies. I have been in training and development for 29 years now, and I have not looked back since. And that's what I mean by stay out of the results business. Because if I had gotten that job with the insurance company, Toshiba never would have happened. There's something better out there, Ron. There's something better out there. Control what you can control, do your best, and all is well.
I think that's excellent advice. And let's slow down here because you just unpacked a lot of life, and I know there's more to go. But how we're raised makes us who we are. It doesn't damn us to who we are or make it happen.
Right.
But it sets a direction. And then we have to take effort, concerted effort to change and to vary. But I want to go through your story and hit some points. When you were a child, a teenager, you were saying, confidence, you had acne, you didn't think you'd get into the college. Were your parents supportive? Were they just let you do your own thing? Were they condemning? What was that relationship like within your home and with any siblings?
I'll start essentially with the siblings, Dave. And there wasn't, I mean, everybody was supportive, except they were all so much older than I was that by the time I reached high school, I was the only one home. And my mom and dad were both supportive, without a doubt. My dad, Dave, was a top executive at one of the electric companies here in New Jersey when he was working. And as I look back and as I reflect, I realize now he was an absolute perfectionist. He demanded perfection from himself, and he expected it from us. And I think there were a lot of different reasons for that. And actually, as we go along, Dave, my dad and I growing up, we got along. Yeah, we did. We were never real close. And I think a lot of it, for me at least, was that I always felt that I wasn't doing enough for him. It's like, well, okay, you played a good game tonight, except you probably could have scored another 6 points. You missed those 3 shots, whatever it might be. And even with my grades and just those kinds of things, I just felt like, what do you want? I just don't know what you want from me. And interestingly, I haven't thought of this in years. I was home from college, and it had to be very early on. It was freshman or sophomore year. And my mom and dad were going out for the night. And my dad said, listen, I just got some investment information. And he said, it came in the mail. And he said, well, we're out tonight. He said, I want you to look this over. And he said, tomorrow, let's talk about what you think I should do, with these particular investments. I had absolutely no training in that area whatsoever. I had maybe an economics course or two. And I remember my dad saying the next day, well, what do you think? And I was like, Dad, I don't know. And he said, what do you mean you don't know? I gave you the information. And I was like, Dad, it doesn't matter that you gave me the information. I don't know what I don't know. I mean, I have no background in this. I mean, if you'll help me with it and help me to understand it, yeah, then I'll be glad to talk to you about it. I'll be glad to help you with it.
And did he ever, when you were there, it sounds like you're always trying to perform to his standards and you couldn't reach it in your mind, and you felt like you let him down and you felt like not not good enough. Is that correct? Is that what I'm hearing?
David, that's very accurate. Absolutely.
So now, there's a lot of things we covered ground wise, so I don't want to skip, but you go to college, and at first it was kind of hard to find people to fit in with. Then you did. But when did the alcoholism start? And why do you think, you might be able to look back now and say why, but what were you trying to fill? What were you running from? Because our listeners, we can have the same problems you had. So we want to get into what was your kind of motivation to medicate with alcohol, and then what were the steps you took to get out of that?
Dave, I think it was, again, I'm going to go back to what I talked about early on, in that I never felt good enough, or I never believed I was good enough. And when I was drinking, that was when, okay, now I can talk. Now I have the courage to speak up. Now I have something to offer. And when did that start in earnest? Probably my junior year in college. And it's interesting because I laugh now, and it whatever. My friend Rob Offerman was a fraternity brother, and I remember him saying one night, we were just sitting around the beer pong table, and he had said to us, "You know what, Jersey?" That was my nickname in school. "There are a bunch of us in this house that drink an awful lot." He said, "Most of us are just going to be able to stop and we'll be fine when we get out of school." He said, "I bet you there are a couple of us that are going to have problems." And not knowing that I was one of the ones that was going to have a real problem. And I mean, and that continued. And actually, too, Dave, it's important to understand, at least for me, I'm pretty sure it was my senior year. Gettysburg had an alcohol counselor go to every fraternity. She gave a presentation and just said, let me just ask you, everybody who's here, these 10 questions or 12 questions, whatever it was. And she's going through the questions, and they were all yes, no. And as she was asking the questions, I was thinking to myself, I'm answering yes to almost every single one of these questions. And that's scary. And I was, deep down, I think I knew there was a problem, or there was a problem brewing. And I was still so far from being ready to ask for help. It just wasn't going to happen. So, I mean, I'll be glad to fill in any more gaps that I can.
No, I just want to make sure we're setting the stage for not just what happened, but what set you up for that failure,
Sure.
that difficulty, that obstacle. And then now, as we progress through your life, how you overcame it. So now you went ahead, you got this great job, you're loving what you're doing, you're coming off of a divorce, and you decide to get clean at what point during this process?
I was 33 years old. And David, I'll tell you, I said to you, I got sober January 31st, 1993. I woke up that morning searingly hungover. I mean, searingly. And I didn't get hungover that much. And it was Super Bowl Sunday. I was supposed to go to a Super Bowl party at my friend Pat Ruick's house. And I remember the first conscious thought I had that morning waking up was, I'll only have a couple today. I'll only have a couple. I'll be okay. At quarter to 11 that morning, first of all, my parents, saw how drunk I had been the night before, and I didn't even remember that. I'm laying in bed at quarter to 11. My mom and dad are there, and both of them, particularly my dad. You're going to detox. You're a drunk. God damn it. You're a drunk. You need help. 10:45, David, I still had in my mind, okay, something's terribly wrong with me. I'm in trouble. I can still do this on my own. And at 10 to 11, 5 minutes later, I said to my mom, I can't do this. And she looked at me like, what do you mean? And I was like, Mom, I need help. I can't do this. I just cannot do this. And, we talked about it and said, both of them said, you need to go away. And I was like, I think so, yes. And David, again, it's funny now. It wasn't at the time. My dad said to me, okay, he said, I know of some places. Do you want to call them or do you want me to call them? And I was like, Dad, I don't think I'm capable of making a telephone call right now. I would appreciate if you would do it. And he did. And thank God. And, the one significant thing for me too, David, is that, I went to a place called the Carrier Foundation here in New Jersey. And the one thing they told my dad on the phone when he called, said, yes, we have a bed for him. The only thing is that he's going to have to spend the first, I think it was 2, maybe 3, whatever. He's going to have to spend the first 2 or 3 nights in the psychiatric ward because we don't have any beds in the alcohol ward. And he said to me, you okay with that? I was like, I don't care. That's fine. And I'll tell you what. I watched, I said it was Super Bowl Sunday. I watched the game. The game was over. And the psychiatric ward was in a different building than where I had watched the game. So we walked over to the other building and I was with another guy. And the door closed. And I'm standing there and I was like, I'm locked in. I'm locked in. This is what it has come to. And, I'll tell you, the following morning, something very significant happened. And I didn't realize how significant it was at the time. God, God with all the other patients, somebody was leaving. Somebody had finished the program. And Lucine, the counselor, said, everybody here needs to say goodbye to, and I don't remember the guy's name. I'll call him Tom. She said, the only thing is you are not permitted to say good luck because luck has nothing to do with your recovery. And I'm sitting there and I was like, what am I going to say to this guy? What can I possibly say to this guy? And what I ended up saying to him, I don't remember it verbatim, essentially was, I hope I look as good as you do when you leave. And more importantly, I wish you well. And my point is now, I never, ever wish people luck now, no matter what it is, because luck has nothing to do with anything. It's all about, again, circling back to stay out of the results business, Ron. Do your groundwork, do the footwork. The results will be what the results will be. Luck has absolutely nothing to do with it.
Yeah, I think that's good advice. I mean, biblically, we're to do our best, always give everything we can, 100%, but the results come from God. And you, me, every listener out there, if you really reflect on life, there's times where we've done our best and failed miserably.
That's
and there's
right.
other times where we smooched the pooch and did everything wrong and we had huge return, right? But that's just because God's good, not because we're good. So
right.
I think that is great advice to stay out of the results business. That's not our business. We're not even supposed to think about, if we get called to do something or we have a goal, it's not even our job sometimes to figure out how. Just start doing it and it'll work itself out.
Yes.
So
that's right. Well, and God does for me what I cannot do for myself.
Yep.
And David, for me, again, if we can circle back to the interview I had with that insurance company, with that guy not liking me and just everything else, that was God doing for me what I could not do for myself. I didn't know it at the time. I do now, and I understand it fully now. I get it. And I'm enormously grateful for that.
Yeah. Now, let me ask you a question, if you don't mind. Being transparent helps us all to understand and connect, but I know
Yeah.
there's also things in our lives we may not want to discuss. But your marriage, was the alcoholism a steady progression? It got worse and worse and worse and worse? Or was it kind of under control, and then when you hit the divorce, it just threw you out of balance? Well, first off, how did the alcoholism affect the marriage? And then how did the divorce affect the alcoholism?
The alcoholism was in place when we started dating. It wasn't outrageous. I mean, it was bad. It was bad enough that I knew I had a problem, although I was trying to hide it from her. And there were a couple times she said, I think even when we were dating and shortly after we were married, I wish you wouldn't drink so much. And David, I'll tell you what ended up happening was my ex-wife is from St. Louis. And long story short, I ended up moving out to St. Louis to live with my mother-in-law and my brother-in-law because Kathy wanted to relocate back out there. And I was okay with that. I was going to go out there, find a job. And as soon as I found a job, she would follow from New Jersey. She would resign from her position here and follow. And when I got out to St. Louis is when things just got absolutely out of control very, very quickly. And that was scary. I mean, that was really, really scary for me. And
for those struggling, I didn't mean to, I'm sorry, there's a delay in our feed. Finish what you were saying.
No. I was saying that it was scary for me. And actually, even, I'm not sure I want to say even more importantly, maybe equally as important, it was horrible for them. I mean, these poor people, I mean, this guy comes out here and is like, this guy's nuts. You know, what is he doing? And I mean, what I put them through is something that to this day, I still feel badly about. I mean, I've made my amends and that's good. I still feel badly about that.
No, let's do this. Now, you moved out there, you were married at that point, but you did not have children, correct?
Correct.
Okay. A lot of people don't even realize it, but they're running for the problems. It doesn't sound like necessarily you were doing that there. That was just how life kind of led you. But a lot of people are running. And what I found is when you run, it catches up and it's usually worse. So running is not a good idea. You got to face in with God and go after it.
You know what though, Dave? I'm gonna say I was running.
Oh, you were running. Okay.
Oh, I was running, and I still remember people saying, "You are Ron. You're trying a geographic relocation, and it's not going to work. It's not going to work." And I had it in my mind, David, as clear as day, as I sit here with you right now. I can tell you, I had it in my mind. When I get out there, I'm going to stop. When I get out there, it's going to be a fresh start. It's going to be okay. And I was absolutely running. Absolutely, I was.
Okay, then let's do this. If you don't mind tapping in and digging deep for the listeners right now struggling and they're thinking, now, there is some truth to moving away from people. Like if you're in a terrible upbringing and everybody around you is just toxic and, you were in relationships with people that surround you, sometimes when you're cleaning up, you do move for that kind of reason.
Yes.
But the motivation and mindset is totally different than running. So
Correct.
When we're talking about running to our community around the world, what happened? Because you said things got worse. So for those listening right now and thinking, I'm ready to run, tell them what they're gonna run into. Satan runs the same playbook over and over again. I don't care if you're in India. I don't care if you're in Ireland. I don't care if you're in, Samoa. You're going to you're going to have the same issues. It's the same play run over and over again by Satan in our lives. So what did you run into so people know what to expect if they run?
David, the disease is chronic, it's progressive, and it's fatal. And I mean, I could not stop drinking. I mean, I just couldn't. I was drinking probably about about maybe a pint a day, a little bit more than that when I got out there, and I shot up to a quart a day so fast, and it just kept getting worse and worse and worse. And actually, the one thing I will tell you about, and again, this is something that is significant for me, and I hope it can help the listeners too. Things were not going well out there. Clearly, things were not going well. And I desperately wanted to talk to my wife about it at the time. I wanted to tell her what was going on. And I kept saying to myself, I'll talk to her tomorrow about it. I'll talk to her tomorrow. And then I would start drinking because I wanted to have the courage to talk to her. And I would, and then I'd be too drunk to bring it up, or, whatever it might be. And the point I make simply is, whatever it is I'm running from is still there the next day. It's still there. And and for me, it was just getting worse and worse. And I was digging myself deeper and deeper and deeper. And the same problem from which I was running and, over which I was drinking still existed. So it's just pure insanity, just pure and simple.
All right. So now let's get to the point where between your birth and when you were checked into the clinic, is there anything that we missed that's significant that's going to tie into your recovery or moving forward to today? Or did we cover everything?
I think we got it all.
Okay. I just don't want to miss any key elements. All right. So now let's do this. You're at this facility. It's Super Bowl Sunday. You spend the first 3 nights in the psychiatric ward, which I worked in a psychiatric mental health facility as a teenager, as a janitor.
Okay.
It was freaking nuts. And I'm not being rude. I mean, it was crazy. And then the nurses start becoming crazy because they deal with it all day, right?
Yeah.
It spreads. It's like corrections. You're in prisons and the corrections officers really struggle because they're around just dysfunction all day. So now you're there for 3 days and I'm sure you're really reflecting on life at this point. So from there, what's your journey or recovery look like, Ron?
Oh, you know what? Something else that was really, really significant for me while I was at Carrier, and that was at the end of every day, each evening we would go to an AA meeting. So we went to the meeting, we came back, 4 or 5 of us, however many, we were sitting in the kitchen, just sitting around, talking and everything else. And David, we were just absolutely roaring with laughter, to the point where the nurse actually left her station and came in to not to check on us, she was laughing because she could hear us. And I still remember she said, "You guys are out of control." And I had the conscious thought at that point, hey, I can laugh. I can be funny. I can have fun without being blottoed. This is significant.
Yep.
And I still remember that to this day. And it was so important. And I've learned that is that, I can do things. I can go anywhere. I can do anything as long as my motivations are pure. And I mean, I can start to take you through my recovery, Dave. I mean, just first of all, I will say this has been the absolute greatest gift and the greatest blessing of my life. There's absolutely positively no doubt about that, because without my being sober, I'm not in the career I am. Equally as important, I had been married for over 21 years now. I got very close with my dad over the years, and just had some incredibly touching moments with him when he was sick. And my mom died 2 years ago, And just, the time I was able to spend with her, the relationships that I have formed with, with my nieces, with my nephews, with my wife's family, and just again, the career that I've had has been just mind blowing to me. And it was always something I wanted to get into. And I remember, again, when I was drinking, God, I would love to get into training. I think I'd be good at that. And now, that's not a drunken, wish, if you will. It's reality. This is what I do, and I'm good at it, and I have fun with it. And I can say that, and I can say it proudly, and I can say it confidently, not arrogantly. I'm not the cat's me out. I'm good, and I strive to get better.
Well, that's intriguing, because that's exactly, people are like, how do I stop drinking? How do I stop drinking? I think I might have even phrased it like that. How do I beat alcoholism? But the real question isn't how do you stop drinking or how do you beat alcoholism? Because you're really just it could be porn. It could be injecting heroin. It could be anything. You could be eating donuts. I mean, medicating pain, sleeping too much.
Right.
So let's get to the real heart of the issue. How did Ron fulfill his heart and his mind to know you are good enough? What steps did you take so our listeners can too? If you were counseling somebody or coaching somebody and you're trying to help them get started on the journey of inner healing to know they are good enough,
yep,
what would you say to them?
I'm going to go back, Dave, to the first comment, or to the first question you asked me. What advice would you give someone? And that is to get to know yourself. And I have gotten to know myself really, really well over the years. And when I first got sober, I started to learn, hey, this is who I am. This is what I believe in. These are the things I'm good at. And it's interesting, Dave, because I needed the help of other people, and I needed the encouragement from other people to help for them. I needed them to help me learn that I was a good guy, that I was a good person, and that, you know what, Ron? Yeah, you make mistakes. And I did, I did. And I mean, I think, I'll go back because, I had been sober, Dave. I don't know. I'm going to say about 9 months, something like that. And I mean, I can get into the details if you want. I don't think it's necessary, whatever. I made a really, really dumb mistake at work, just really dumb. And you know what? I will tell you. It's not that I'm embarrassed, just whatever. I was doing a training session, a 5-day training session, and I didn't know the material as well as I should have. And actually, you know what? This is relevant. I'm sorry I said I'm not going to tell you the details.
No worries. Hey, that just we're all human telling a story. So just keep going, brother.
A 5-day training session. I didn't know the material as well as I should have. And I deny that to no one. On the morning of day 2, 2 people from Philadelphia walked out. You don't know what you're doing. We're out of here. About an hour and a half later, I got a telephone call from Tony Codiani, who was my boss's boss. Tony was out in California, and Tony ripped me to shreds, and rightly so, because I had made a dumb mistake. And the point I make is, all of a sudden, this was probably the biggest quote unquote crisis that I had faced in my early sobriety. Because, now it's like, I can't medicate this. I can't medicate this. And I say, what do I do? What do I do? And, I ended up talking to people within my network and just having them tell me, Ron, first of all, can you change the fact that you made this mistake? No. Okay. That part is uncontrollable. That part of the serenity prayer is done. Okay. What can you control? How I react to it, what I do moving forward. And Dave, I vowed from that day forward, and this is probably the start, even though I didn't quite realize it at the time. That was the start. I vowed I will never walk into a classroom unprepared again, ever. I'm not going to do it. And I never did. I haven't, and I never will, because I never want to go through that again, ever. And, again, what was interesting too, though, is I was working for Toshiba at the time. And this so many years ago, I was in the copier and fax division. We didn't sell our equipment directly to the end users. We had a network of dealers do it. And these two, people from Philadelphia worked for a dealership there. Art was the name of the president of this dealership. And Tony, he was saying to me, I will never, ever send anybody to Toshiba training again. You people are no good. You don't know what you're doing. And talked to him. And I was like, Art, I get it. I get it. This is on me. It was my fault. I made a huge mistake. Number one, I hope you'll send people to other Toshiba training. And if you will give me one more chance, let me tell you what I'll do. You can send your people to one of my classes for free. Well, I won't charge you, and I will prove to you that I know what I'm doing and that it's worth the investment for your people to come. Long story short, Art and I became friends over the years. And that's something of which I'm really proud. And clearly, and equally as important, Dave, no, and you know what? Not equally as important. Much more importantly, actually, I didn't drink. And I realized, hey, you know what? I can deal with things. I can do these things. It's okay. It's okay. It's not fun. It's not easy. And again, I denied to no one. I didn't sleep well for a couple of nights. And you know what? Those are called consequences to behavior. And and again, I've learned that over the years, where it's like, yeah, when I make a mistake, or if I do something dumb, there are going to be consequences, and that's okay, as long as I've done my best, like what we were talking about earlier.
Yeah, that's great advice. And thank you for your transparency. And I'm sure it wasn't hard and it wasn't comfortable, but you took a terrible situation, gave it your best, God took care of the results, and now this man's your friend.
That's right.
From that, and period before that, he would have spit on you if he saw you in the street, and now you guys are buddies. So let's do this. Pretend I'm an alcoholic, and I'm a functional alcoholic. I'm going to work every day. It's getting worse though, and I'm starting to fall apart by the seams. What do you tell me, Ron, to help me?
Number one, how willing are you to accept some help?
I'm ready. I'm, and it's that half. I want to do it, but I'm on the fence. Like, do I want to put the effort in my heart?
Nope.
Like I'm telling people I'm ready, but what about in my heart? I'm kind of on the fence. I'm afraid to give up, because if I give up the alcohol, I'll feel the pain. I don't want to feel the pain.
I'll tell you what, I can tell you a story. I give you an actual story. I was I was sober for, I don't know, 3-4 years, maybe a little bit longer now, whatever. You're right around that time frame. I was talking to my friend Rick Moran on the phone, who had been in and out of the program. Talking to him on the phone, he was drunk.
And the program being AA, Alcoholics Anonymous, correct?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay.
I
think that's a fantastic program personally. I got a master's in counseling, and I actually attended AA meetings, and it was one of those meetings I thought, I don't care what kind of addiction you have. This is good for everybody, even people who don't really have addictions. This is good life knowledge. I really enjoyed the program.
Yeah. Well, and Dave, you know what? I need to only speak for myself because of the traditions of AA. We're supposed to be anonymous at the level of press, radio, and films. I speak for myself when I say AA saved my life. Absolutely, positively, unequivocally, AA saved my life. And I was talking with Rick on the phone, and he was drunk. And I was like, okay, Rick, here's the deal. I'm hanging up in 10 seconds. That is going to happen. That's what's going to happen in 10 seconds. What happens after that is up to you. because I'm not outrageously busy at work today. And if you want, I will come get you. And we'll find a detox for you. I'll take you to detox. Or you can drink more. What do you want to do? I want to drink more. Okay. Goodbye, Rick. And that was that. And again, please, Dave, please realize I speak for myself when I say I will help anybody out there, anybody who is willing to accept the help. I do not chase people. I will not do that. I don't believe in that. If people want to experiment more, if people want to do more R&D, go ahead. I wish you well. Now, I don't wish you luck, again, because luck has nothing to do with it. I wish you well. Here's what you can expect. It's going to get worse, and it's going to get really, really ugly. And if you ever need the help, feel free to reach out, because, you know, and again, I don't want to say necessarily, because I think it would be arrogant to say, I'll be there for you. The help is out there. The help is out there through the program, through a lot of, through other areas. It's there if people want it.
Yep.
And that's condition, if.
Yeah. And I think so. Step one is be real. Do you want the help right now?
That's right.
And
That's
then
right.
Step two is get into a reputable, licensed detox where you can start the healing process and physically get it out of your system.
Yeah.
And then with what you're saying, if you're listening to Ron and, we come at this, we have listeners all over the world, you have a different worldview. I mean, from the biblical model, there's times where there's always exceptions, but the standard rule is if somebody wants to engage in sin and leaves, let them go. Not that you don't love them or care,
That's
but
right.
they're not going to change until they want to.
That's right.
And like Ron, myself, and you as a listener, if you've managed people, you can give me 100 people who are A stars, but if they don't want to learn, I don't want them as an employee. But if you give me a bunch of B people who are willing to learn, even a C person, and what I mean by is like the talent level, like they just got natural God-given ability, they're good, but they got refinement. These people really don't have talent. I would much rather have 100 people who are C willing to learn, because they're going to outperform consistently for the rest of their life than the A's who are arrogant. So what you're saying, I believe, from a biblical and from a practical standpoint, lines up. Yeah. So now you got somebody who didn't want the help at that point. Yes. That could be some of our listeners right now. They're about to shut off this episode, or they could be wise and finish the episode. So to those people, they're like, no, I am ready. Where do you go from there?
There are so many different areas, Dave. I mean, there truly are, like you said, and again, I speak only for myself.
Yes. Here. Speak with your experience. What helped Ron? What helped you on your journey?
I do not think I could have gotten sober without going to a facility. I don't think I could have just come off the street and gone to AA. I needed the structure. I needed the education. I needed that stability. I needed those 26 days. So, I mean, if that's the position where somebody is, goodness, look for a facility. Just, look for a facility. And again, all I can say is my experience with Carrier, which was AA based, was fabulous. Just fabulous. If you believe, or if any listeners believe, you can come in just off the street and you want to start going to AA meetings, my God. I mean, AA is so welcoming, just so welcoming. And I do know people who have done that, who have come in off the street and who have gotten sober. I'm not one of them. And I admire anybody who can do that. I personally, Dave, I believe it's one of the most courageous things anybody can ever do in their life, is to come in off the street and say, my name is so-and-so, I'm an alcoholic and I need help. I can't imagine. I can't think of anything more courageous than that. I really can't.
Yeah. And the difference is for anybody listening with friends or family, yourself, It's just, you got to really want it to start.
Yes.
But I'm going to say this, because again, I believe in Christ. I believe the Bible. And I remember got saved when I was 15 and going to church. And a lot of people in Christian circles badmouth Alcoholics Anonymous. And I'm not saying it's perfect, but I personally, like I said, I don't remember if it was 5 weeks or 8 weeks, but part of my curriculum was to attend these meetings. And they were biblically sound. And I'm going to be blunt, there was probably some more biblically sound doctrine than there was in some churches today. So I'm like, for those who are judging, good judgment is biblical. Judging is unbiblical. I'm just saying personally, Ron's saying personally, Alcoholics Anonymous was phenomenal and it helps people. And I know today I was with a client. This dude is a multimillionaire. He went through Alcoholics Anonymous. In Pensacola, there's a gentleman that's super popular and helped, he's reshaping the downtown and he's making money, but he's really put a lot into the community. He went through Alcoholics Anonymous. So it's not for poor, it's not for rich, it's not for fat, it's not for fit. It's for people who are trying to get their lives right. And if you've bashed the program, but you haven't really done the research, shut your mouth, go check it out, and then make a call. But don't, I'm saying this because there's so many people that need help and they hear in their head, oh, this is bad. If you're a Christian, you don't go there. If you're a Christian, you don't go there. What? Where does that come from? Go.
Just go. And I think a lot of sometimes people also think, oh, AA is a religious program. No, it's not. No, it's not. It is spiritual. It is spiritual. I grew up in a very religious family. Church every Sunday, undoubtedly, Sunday school and everything that goes along with that. And while I believed it, and I still do today, it never really resonated with me. I am so spiritual today, and I have a deeper, stronger relationship with the God of my understanding today, and who just happens to be, and again, I speak for myself, the traditional God. I have such an incredible relationship with that person today. And it's just, I don't know, it's just so gratifying. And I mean, Dave, for me, again, staying out of the results business, as before you came on with me today, what I believe in doing, and I did it right before you came on, is like, God, this is out of my hands. This podcast is going to go the way it's going to go. Just your will be done. Please just help me. Yep. Just help me to do what you need me to do. And that makes it so much easier, instead of me sitting here looking at my notes. Oh, I got to make this point. And I got to make sure I say this. It's like, no, just do the groundwork, be ready, and it will go the way it's supposed to.
Yep. And when we, on this side, we don't really know each other, and I'm praying the same type of prayer. God, please, help whatever we discuss today, be led by your Holy Spirit, and help it to glorify you and bring our listeners value and help in life. And it's like, that's how God works through us. We're in different parts of the country, the world, but we have the same Father. And
yeah,
man, I appreciate you talking about this, because it's such a difficult issue. And again, it's not just alcoholism, it's any addiction. Goes back to the core. Yours were feelings of not being good enough. And I'm sure other things. And for our listeners, it's the same thing, maybe just a different color. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So, no doubt.
Yeah. So now, between your birth and now you get through the program, you're doing well. You gave the illustration about failing miserably with the training, but without going back to the addiction. You learn to correct it, and now you and this gentleman are friends. So from there to today, where does Ron's journey go?
It has taken me in so many different areas, Dave. I mean, both personally and professionally. I'll start with the personal piece first. There was a woman in the program named Mary, who, when I first met her, I just instantly liked her. I respected her. I think, I always liked what she said. I always listened carefully to what she shared about. And I was around for maybe, I don't know, 3, 4, 5 years, whatever it was. And she started to come to me. Hey, Ron, I've got this niece. Her name is Lori, if you're interested. I was like, Mary, thanks. It's okay. No, thank you. And she was persistent without being a pain. She came to me. I had a relationship had ended. Mary came to me again. My niece is still out there. And I was like, Mary, I need some time to heal. I'm not ready yet. At some point in time, I might be. I went to her about 9, 10 months later. Is your niece still out there? Yes. And the woman that I mentioned earlier to you, that, to whom I've been happily married for 21 years, is Mary's niece.
Man, look at that.
Yeah.
That's so fantastic. So you're in a program, God gave you the wisdom not to jump into it, and you end up not only getting clean, but finding the love of your life.
That's right. And I mean, we've been happy for 21 years. And, the things that have gone on with us, the adventures that we have had, the wonderful, wonderful memories we've had. I mean, we have traveled to some incredible places. We've been to Europe countless times before the pandemic. And just for me, I think our best adventure in my mind was to Africa, where we spent 16 days. And again, thinking back is that I was a poor, hopeless drunk. And now we've been to Europe countless times. We've been to Africa. I became, David, and again, actually through the program, I became a giant season ticket holder 26 years ago. And that's been all kinds of fun. And, all kidding aside, through the wonderful years we've had, the terrible years we've had, the people in our group we have such a wonderful bond. And and again, they know I'm sober, and, we kid about it because they all drink, and that's fine. I have no issue with that. And, they have all said, Ron, if we ever see you going anywhere near a drink, you will never make it into the stadium alive, because we'll kill you first.
Yep. Those are good friends.
That's right. That's exactly right. And I mean, from a career perspective, I mean, I was doing sales training in the beginning. And I am so proud to be able to say, I mean, I've worked in leadership development for a long time now. I have presented to the executive committee of the Port Authority of New York and New Jersey. I have presented to a number of other executive committees. And again, I cannot deny, and I will not deny, was I nervous doing that? Absolutely. And you know what? I was prepared. I was ready to do this. Stay out of the results business. It's going to go the way it's supposed to. And, I think one of the other things, Dave, too, because we've been talking quite a bit about feeling inadequate, not being less than, however you want to phrase it. And I have learned over the years where it's like, Ron, you have something to offer. You bring good stuff to the table. And I need to remember that after all of these years. It's still like, oh, and, am I adequate? Or, is this going to, do they really, need what I'm about to, share with them? Yes, they do. And you're going to do a really good job with it, as long as you are prepared.
Yeah. What do they say? When somebody gets called lucky, it's like, it's funny. The harder I prepare, the luckier I get. Right.
That's right. That's right.
And just to touch up on this one more subject too, because you're hearing Ron's results, and we're going to transition into the final stage of where is Ron today and where is he heading. but I really care about our listeners, and I want to make sure this point is like crystal clear. All truth comes from God. And Alcoholics Anonymous, I'm not saying it's a silver bullet, but I am saying it helps a ton of people. I'm saying I personally went through some meetings and read the literature. And like Ron mentioned, it's not a religious organization, it's spiritual. Some people get turned off by that if they come from conservative backgrounds. But what I want you to understand is the original founders were believers in Christ. And then over time, they actually started changing it because they wanted people who weren't in a religious circle to feel more welcome. So you can argue about that, yes or no, but Alcoholics Anonymous ultimately helps people, and it can help you too. Just give it a chance. And if you're a strong Bible believer, every time it mentions the universe or the creator or however they phrase it in their literature, a lot of times they just straight up say God. But don't get all bent out of shape out of details, the moat and the beam. Don't get upset about the moat right now when you got a beam in your life. Right. So just, I wanted to make sure we clarified that it's not a satanic program. It's a godly program from everything I've seen.
Yes. And everything you're saying, Dave, is spot on.
No,
just
thanks.
spot on.
Yeah. I just want to help because there's things we hear in church that aren't true biblically. And there's things that people are told outside of church that aren't true, and just try to clarify what we can to help each other.
Yeah.
So now, Ron, life's changed. You meet the love of your life. Business is good. Between, again, the beginning of your life and today, is there anything we missed, or are we ready to transition to where's Ron today and where are you heading?
No, I mean, there are so many other stories I could tell, except we've covered the major points undoubtedly. I mean, I think you have, I hope you have a good idea of who I am and what I am, and I hope obviously the listeners do too. So yeah, I'm ready.
All right then. So where is Ron today and where are you heading? You just helped us. How can we help you now?
Well, I mean, where am I heading? I am 62, and I am nowhere near ready to retire yet. I'm just not. I love what I do. I have a lot of fun with it, and I mean, I want to be able to continue to make a difference in people's lives, however I can do that. Whether it is professionally, whether it's personally, whatever it might be, I want to be able to do that as long as I possibly am able to. And it's interesting because when my mom died, it'll be 2 years in September, and she was 99. And Dave, you want to talk about a woman of strong faith? My mom was just an amazing woman. She knew that she was dying. And she told all of the siblings on a number of different occasions, "I'm ready. I'm not afraid. I miss your dad. I'm going to heaven. Everything is fine. It's just a matter of, when is God going to take me?" And she told me on a number of different occasions, "It's taking long. It's taking long." And the point I make is, my response to her was, "Mom, you've got something left to do."
Yes.
You've
Amen.
left to contribute. There's still something there, Mom, that you're going to contribute, either to me, to us, to other human beings. And I believe that, and she still did that. And I mean, that's the kind of legacy I would like to leave, is just to continue to make a difference, however I can. Well, again, whether it's through professionally in training and development, whether it's through helping people to recover, like you said, whether it's alcohol, whether it's food, whatever the addiction is, if I can make a difference, that's what I want to be able to do.
Awesome. Now, if somebody wants to get a hold of you, Ron, we're going to put links in the show notes, but what's the best way for people to reach you?
Probably the best way to reach me is through my LinkedIn page. Okay. And That is just very simply my name, Ron Reich, and my company name is RLB, Training and Development. Go to LinkedIn and you can reach me there. If anybody wants to reach out to me directly, my email is simply r.reich, R-E-I-C-H, 2006 at Gmail. And anyone can feel free to reach out for whatever reason. Again, professionally, personally. And, the one thing here, Dave, too, that's so important to me, and I so want the listeners to understand, anybody that reaches out to me, number one, I promise I will get back to you. The other promise I make is that you are not going to get a sales pitch. You're not going to get a professional sales pitch. You're also not going to get a personal sales pitch. I will happily spend time with you. I'll happily talk with you. And if there's anything there where it's appropriate for us to perhaps work together, or where I can help you in any way, I'll do it. And again, the point is, I want to talk to you.
Well, that is awesome. That is a fantastic offer. If you're listening now and need help, take up Ron's offer. And like our slogan says, ladies and gentlemen, don't just listen to this great content and advice Ron gave you, but do it, repeat it each day so you can have a remarkable life in this world, and more importantly, for eternity to come. So I'm David Pasqualone. This was Ron Reich. And you are you. Go do your best. Like Ron said, if you're still on this earth and you're still breathing, God loves you and has a plan for you. So finish the race, keep growing, keep preparing. You're never lucky. You're just prepared when the opportunity comes, and let us know how we can help you. Ron, thank you again for being here today, brother.
David, it's been my pleasure, truly. Thank you.
Oh, anytime. Ladies and gentlemen, share this episode with your friends, the loved ones, even strangers, not to promote our show, but to help the world grow for God's glory and for your benefit. Have a great one. We'll see you in the next episode. Ciao.
The Remarkable People Podcast. Check it out. The Remarkable People Podcast. Listen, do, repeat. For life.